Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast. If you're watching on YouTube and you saw a clickbait thumbnail and you're like, whoa, I want to watch that, and you didn't realize it was a podcast, I put a podcast icon up in there and it says an episode number. Frank, it says Merge Conflict. Did I gotta be any more clear?
It's either clear or confusing. We'll find out. Please write into the comments below. Clear or confusing. We like to know these things.
We do want to and we want to remind people that you can see our faces, attempt to kind of look into the webcam on occasion, but also kind of look at each other at youtube.com/@mergeconflictfm. You can search for just Merge Conflict anywhere. We're out there. It's also in your YouTube music application if you want to listen to us, or wherever you get your podcast. And make sure you like, subscribe, and do all those things. We actually did get some comments from last one. The other one was "Happy birthday, Frank!"
Oh, I really doubt that was a comment, but thank you, imaginary commenter that you just made up. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm old. Hello, everyone. I'm still here. We're here. Can't get rid of me.
And for your birthday, it looks like the NuGet team gave NuGet.org a complete refresh, and that's what we're going to announce something we're talking about today. But I don't know, have you seen the new NuGet? There's a dark theme.
Okay. Now I'm embarrassed because I do love NuGet updates, and okay, I'm embarrassed. I'm checking now. But James, good PSA. NuGet update. It's very important.
It's nice. It's got the new Fluent UI design, so it's like very nice. So if you're using like Aspire dashboard, like, you know, Fluent UI or a bunch of other Microsoft products, like it falls in line. There's a lot of new filters that you can do. There's nice new tabs that are all up in there. Anyways, it's nice. It's got the stuff in there. Yeah.
Can confirm dark mode is functioning. I have quibbles about their color choices, but dark mode is functioning very nicely. Thank you, Microsoft, for not blinding all of us who choose to run on the darker side of computing.
Yeah, it's good. I'm sure it's probably because it's highly accessible, because it goes through about a bajillion accessibility tests. So that's probably why.
And I don't know if I'm just freaking out, but it seems a little bit faster too. I wonder if they bumped up the slider a little bit on the servers.
That's a good question.
Or maybe did some real low-level programming to speed it up, but it was feeling very snappy to me, and that's always a good feeling.
Did you also see that there's a NuGet, dotnet NuGet Y or something like that now? That was in the release notes. We didn't talk about it last week. Did you see that?
.NET NuGet Y? No, I you are just filling me with information this week.
Yeah, so it's .NET NuGet Y. I'm going to put that, and it gives you a nice
the
fancy...
letter Y or why?
Why? It will show you transitive packages that are being used.
Oh, this I like a lot. Yeah. I was trying to do this myself with Fugit, but it's an exponential graph to solve it. This is why NuGet restores take a while, because these graphs can just grow, as any Python programmer could tell you, as any what I want to say JavaScript programmer, you know what I'm saying, Node programmer will tell you. My goodness, packages get out of hand quickly. And I don't use that many packages, and they still get out of hand quickly. So that's fun.
Yeah.
.NET NuGet, why?
And this one's important because it actually adds on to a feature that was added in .NET 8 that I didn't really realize was there, but there's something called NuGet audit. Now, this is something that I don't know if it's on by default, but you probably should turn on by default. But basically, it checks your NuGet packages and it will alert you if there's vulnerabilities. And now in .NET 9, it will also do transitive dependencies. So you could see, it seems like they're paired together, but it seems like, you could see it in the IDE or wherever you're at, there's a warning, this thing here. Oh, let me do .NET Y. Here's the package. And what's this thing using from?
Well, that's a great question, because I use GitHub will tell you if you're using a package with a vulnerability, and I'm curious if they're using the same database. But I'm not sure if GitHub will do the transitive ones, as in a package that references a package that references a package. Good question. I'm glad we have it, though.
It could, but if you have, that's the thing, is if you have a transitive dependency, doesn't it make the main one vulnerable then at that point?
I'm not sure they do that. That's really the question. Because you would have to propagate that flag throughout every repo. So you would start with the roots, determine it's insecure, and then just propagate that flag
Yeah.
outward, that's a resource intensive operation. Transitive dependencies are no joke, people.
Yeah.
You're going across the whole graph. Who knows what you're going to bring in?
Yeah. It's wild. Well, while talking about new stuff, let's talk about some new hotness that just came out last week because you're listening to this on a Monday. And hopefully everyone joined for the .NET Aspire Developer Day that took place, which was 7 hours or some odd hours of sessions from community, from the team, from all sorts of stuff, people keynote and all the good enough because .NET Aspire 8.1, man, they move quick on that at .NET Aspire. 8 versions, 2 months, woo, and a dot release. And I think that one thing that's very fascinating and why I want to talk about it this week is because you do a lot of Python work, Frank. Have you heard of this programming language called Python?
I unfortunately have. I'm just kidding. I actually really love Python. It's a great language. Everyone knows C# first, F# second, but Python very close third. I think it's a darling little language. And honestly, I feel like doing a blog entry like Iron Python with Maui or something like that. Like I want to do some Python stuff, but we're not talking about Iron Python because we're talking about Python. This Aspire team, they learned about this little programming language called Python. I don't know who told them. Who told them?
I think Willem Mintz did because Willem is the one that implemented it, which is a community member.
Oh, that's fantastic. It came from a community member? Okay. Okay, so we're talking about Aspire. I want to set the stage because a lot of people out there, I assume, are like me and don't know a lot about Aspire. But Aspire is, can I do this very poorly and then you can correct it? Aspire is a way to use a programming language to orchestrate, declare, and bring up all your beautiful, wonderful servers that you need to create the chaos that we call the internet.
That's one of the aspects of it. I think they're evolving the messaging around Aspire, and I've been part of some of that conversation.
Okay.
And that is definitely one of the core pieces of functionality. I would say that .NET Aspire offers building blocks to create distributed applications, which are applications that have multiple projects that do different things. You know,
the chaos of the internet, the chaos of the internet, tomato,
that enables simplification of complex things, such as orchestration, which is the one thing that you're talking about. So orchestration, service discovery.
It's the thing that matters to me. That's why I care about it. But you're right. Service discovery. I always forget that one. I like to hard code server names. I don't know. That's me. Yeah. But I get why other people don't like to do that.
Yeah, you have like telemetry built in out of the box, resiliency out of the box. You have a component ecosystem to help you streamline these different services and components and frameworks that you might use, or different databases or different caching layers that you might use. It wants to simplify that. And also at the same time, create this ecosystem of components that tie into the other systems. So for example, imagine you have a API with a database. You can imagine how you might build that today. Today, with .NET Aspire, you might create an ASP.NET Core API. You would then maybe orchestrate that in a .NET Aspire project. And in that code, you would say add project, which would be your project. You could also say add database and say, hey, give me a Postgres database. Boom. And then additionally, when you add that Postgres database into the client, because you've opted into this .NET Aspirification of your existing application, health checks and monitoring telemetry are built in. So when you add official Aspire components in, instead of just using like raw Postgres, it adds raw Postgres, but adds in the metrics, telemetry, and all that stuff on top of it for you. So imagine the world where you're like, hey, I want Postgres. It automatically registers health checks for you. It will automatically download and pull the container for you and start it up in Docker for you automatically, which is now ARM64 compatible on Windows, which is great. Thanks, Docker Desktop. I love Podman as well, but it's great. So those are some different components. So every application could use this today. So even if you're just building a website, you, instead of just launching your project or multiple projects, you launch this app host project that's orchestrating in code your project, and it boots up your projects, like you said, but also boots up a dashboard on your local machine. So as you're using your app, you can get insight into what's happening, or in Frank's case, what's going wrong.
Ouch. Wow.
Ooh, a
Low
zinger on your
blow.
birthday. Ooh, is it hot? Ooh, it's hot.
I was just
Heat
about to
wave.
compliment you on your sales pitch, and then he
Yeah.
ends that way. Okay. Uh, I'm halfway there. I do have a single website that is a single click deployment on the Azure already, and I constantly debate whether I should upgrade it to this. It's that telemetry. That's always the selling point. That telemetry is so good that like I kind of want to use it for my robots. I want my robots just uploading the telemetry so I get beautiful graphs and things like that. Yeah. Okay. So that's Aspire, but they moving fast.
Yeah.
That was 8.0. Everything you just said was 8.0. How long ago? A few months ago? Something like
Build
that.
2 months ago.
Build 2 months ago. But we're at 8.1. And 8.1 has Python support. So all those wonderful things you just said now includes Python projects. And yes, James, I am happy. It's cute because it's a wonderful language and you can write cute little web servers in it. And I'm making fun. Obviously, you can write really powerful web servers that run e-commerce web solutions and things like that. But it's really nice to know that they made it so simple. It's like there's the builder to do your basic server orchestration. You say like add Python server. I'm probably getting that
Project. Python
incorrect.
project.
Add Python
It's any project. It's any project. It's any Python anything.
Any Python code you want to run. I often run Flask web servers because Flask web servers are super easy to write, super low maintenance, and it's kind of funny that the Aspire documentation actually pulls out a Flask server, so it's good to know I'm working with everyone else. We're all using the same tech here, and you can just point it to your main.py because Python doesn't compile its code. It's not like that. It's not the world it lives in, and then it just runs. I love magical things that just run, so that's cool. Because honestly, if you ask me today, like, how do I take my Python Flask project and get it up on Azure, or for that matter, literally any cloud host, I would have to go read a million cloud docs and everything. It's much nicer to just create an Aspire project and be like, whatever, here, host my Aspire thing.
Yeah, I think that there's a few aspects for it, right? I think of this as, the word that is synonymous with this is polyglot, which I'm not a huge fan of that word polyglot, but that's the word that the data scientisty world have moved to.
We should use English, not Greek.
Yeah,
whatever.
I would say, I think of it like mixed mode, right? Think of it like your router, right? Sometimes you're on WPA 2 and 3, and you got 2.4 and 5. You're in mixed mode. So think of it like this. A lot of applications today that we might be writing are 100% .NET, and that's it. C# code everywhere. Get out of here. Anything else? That's it. That's all I want. If only. Now, imagine a world, though, that you work at a company where you have many teams writing different projects, and maybe you're working on the same project, and there's different, frameworks and languages and things that excel in one thing, or you might have legacy code, or you might have someone that just is running a package that's optimized for this thing. A good example of this is that I specifically had to write a Flask Python app because there was this amazing Python library that was out in the world that would go out and grab YouTube chat messages of live streams. There's no API for it. And
no, Google would never give that.
Yep. And it was all Python. And I'm like, I can't iron Python this. It's all like, whatever. And I said, I need to create an API that calls this thing that I can consume in my .NET application or my Azure function or something else, right? And that's what I ended up doing, which was like really cool to do. So in this instance, inside of an Aspire project, you can add in, of course, your .NET projects. You can add containers. We'll talk about some other containery stuff that they did as well that are out there. You can add executables. You could already in 8.0, the first release, which coincide with .NET 8, you could also add Node apps and NPM apps as well. So if you had a Vue or an Express or whatever, you could add it in here. Now, you're not like adding the Python project Well, it could be in VS Code actually. It's kind of cool,
Why
but
not?
it could be in there. But you're not calling. It's not p invoke, right? This is not p
Right.
invoke, right? This is like, hey, go start this project over here because
Yeah.
my distributed app needs this API, this Flask app to run for it to work. And the cool part is that it then ties into the greater ecosystem. You can say, hey, add this Python project, .NET Aspire, when you run the app host, will start it up. And
Mm-hmm.
also you can tie in open telemetry into Python or into Node. You can pass variables back and forth when you start it up. And then you're in your Aspire dashboard and you get your .NET projects, you got your Flash stuff, you got your Vue stuff. You just got all this stuff. It's just, you're programming everything, Frank. You're just doing all the things.
Well, thank you for finally giving me my segue into ML/AI. We have to get it into every episode. I wasn't sure how we were going to do it when we were talking about Aspire, but we've got it here. Yeah, this is great for AI because as much as I love ML.NET and all the like ways to interface with ML libraries, it's just easier to use Python, to be honest, when doing especially neural network stuff because you're going to use TensorFlow or PyTorch or something like that. And so, yeah, you can go through the effort of exporting your models and getting them to run in .NET, and it's totally doable. I've done it several times, but boy, oh boy, it's a pain in the bottom. So it's much easier to just say, here, spin up this Flask server, call these Python routines when I need them, spit back the results to my actual app, and just get her done.
Yeah.
Dig it.
That's cool. I think it's a really nice addition. It's cool. It's a community, project, and I'm curious where the team will go next. Right, you already got JavaScript, you got Python. There's more programming languages out there.
Ooh, I Scheme, a good Lisp, something with Clojure. Yeah, we gotta get the hipster languages. A Haskell,
C, C++.
please no.
Just run some CMake.
libuv, yeah, please
Add
no.
CMake project.
The world must move on. Please let the world move on.
No, we can't move on, Frank. It's impossible.
Yes, we must move on, James. We must.
Okay. Well, we must
Speaking
move on.
of which,
we talked about containers, and like I said, in .NET Aspire, you could, for all intents and purposes, like, hey, a container existed in the world or on my machine, go start that container. So that's kind of cool. But they've gone a little bit further and added a way of building container images. And I think you're the right person to describe this feature because I don't know anything about Docker. The reason I'm using Aspire is to not have Docker files. But when you read this, you're like, oh, I can't wait for this. This is amazing.
Oh, yeah. This is shout out to everyone who's lazy out there. Hi, where are my people? Everyone raise your hands. Look, I think the correct way to do Docker is you create a Docker file, and it declares your beautiful Docker container that's going to contain all your beautiful software with its magnificent configuration and all that good stuff. And then from that Docker file, you generate an image. And now you have a Docker image, and you upload it to a hub, and now you are living in the year 2012-ish. And congratulations. Life is good. But if you're a little bit, I'm gonna say lazy, but it's not the correct word. It's just a different way of doing things. Okay, you don't really want to upload your image to the hub. Maybe bandwidth is expensive, or maybe you just don't want anyone to have access to your images or anything. What you want to do instead is build your image every time it's needed, which is not at all efficient or anything like that. But it's nice because it's easy to manage. If something's wrong with your image, you can just change the Docker file and get a new image, lickety split. So the dev cycle is nice and short. The only real downside is I think you don't have cred in Silicon Valley. I'm pretty sure that's the only downside to just building them whenever they're needed.
Yeah.
Please write in, everyone, and add comments of why I should be actually building images and uploading them to a hub. But I literally see absolutely no reason to. So this new feature in Aspire allows people like me who just want to have Docker files, just have their Docker images without dealing with images. Images are the most annoying part of Docker. Docker's wonderful. Containers are great. Docker files are great. Images are annoying. and containers are annoying. I'm probably mixing up those words. Please write into the comments and don't yell at me too much.
Yeah, I think that this one, so they added two things. It's a add Docker file with Docker file. My assumption here, not, I mean, I work pretty close with the team, but not being in like the planning rooms, when they're planning these features. My assumption here is that this is also an adoption type of thing. There's probably a lot of existing developers like, hey,
Oh yeah,
I'm using Postgres already, and I already
yeah.
have this Docker file that's doing a lot of other stuff. I just want to use that, right? So what's cool is that they enable you to either A, just go use your a Docker file that exists. Like, hey, you want to create
Whatever.
when you're creating a container that, and let's say a .NET Aspire doesn't have a container resource or a component that's pre-built to help you do that. Hey, here's a container, Docker file. Do it. Boom. And then the other one is that you can actually go and modify the container image that's being used for the existing resource, like such as Postgres, right? So for example, you out of the box, if you just say, oh, add SQL Server or add Postgres, it will go and it will go off and then pull the default container down. But you may want to modify that resource. You might be injecting stuff. You might be customizing it. Now you can say, hey, add Postgres with this Docker file, which is kind of like a config, and it will enable you to opt into those other things that I talked to you about, which would be like all the telemetry and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. But you get this this flexibility, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's the trick and the part that honestly I'm not fully understanding myself. So we all have a little bit of homework to do. Saying again, the telemetry is half of what makes Aspire cool. I am curious what are the correct ways to signal out telemetry and stuff like that from my really ad hoc and poorly written Docker files. But I'm sure there's an example written somewhere where I can go figure out how to do all that stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, yeah, today when it launched, there's already great documentation on all these things, including a bunch of new components that they put out into the world. So in the world of .NET Aspire, basically, instead of having to figure out how to wire things up and figure out discovery and how to add telemetry and do this stuff, or even what image you should use, there's like an easy button, which is the Aspire components, right? So if you want to add, you want to add a database, you want to add OpenAI, you want to add, Postgres, you want to add whatever, to all the things that are out there.
Oh, right. I have to admit, I didn't know about these. How easy? One line of code? Two lines of code?
One line of code in the app host, which is I would like to use this resource, and then in your API or your web app, you use it, and then that will bring it in. Yeah. So there were already things for a bunch of Azure stuff, right? So OpenAI, Blob, Cosmos, Event Hub, Key Vault, SignalR, Service Bus, storage, table storage, and queues. And then there's also MongoDB, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, Redis, SQL Server, SEC, RabbitMQ, all these other ones that are out there. But, and of course, community members and other companies are building components as well. These are just ones from Microsoft, right, that are stamped and approved, right, that do certain stuff. But anyone can build their own component. So I think like Raygun, for example, who does like crash reporting and monitoring stuff that used to be a podcast sponsor long back in the day. I think they have a component. So you can like add the Raygun component into your .NET Aspire project. But today they released 8.1, which also released new packages, a lot from the community, by the way. I would say more than half of these are from community contributions, which is awesome to see. And there's Keycloak, Elasticsearch, Garnet, which is a Postgres version caching storage. Valkey, which is also for Redis, a fork of Redis project. Valkey.
Got it.
Elasticsearch is Elasticsearch.
Turns out.
Yeah. Keycloak is like, I think Keycloak is like Key Vault, but like locally, I think.
Okay.
Keycloak.
Sure.
Fowler's always talking about it. He's like, it's a registers JW. Yeah, registers JWT bearer and OpenID connect authentication handlers stuff. There's like a server. There's a realm. It's cool. There's a part of it's called a Keycloak
Okay,
realm.
I feel like I'm just forgetting one, all right? Nats, Nats. Remind me what Nats is.
Nats is a server.
It's a server, I agree. Is it a network file server? I don't know. They got it though. In case you need it, in case you got the Nats, they've got Nats covered.
It's a
They've,
street. It's a single platform for streaming, key value, object storage, and pub sub.
Nats, baby. I am
Nats.
so out of date on web technology. I did not know what Nats was.
No idea.
Lost my hipster card right there. Darn
They
it.
got something called Kafka, Apache Kafka. Have you heard about that?
Of course, everyone uses Kafka.
Well, now it's right built in. Milvis, that's a AI thing. That's like a vector database. I mean, you hear about vector databases.
You did a whole blog/video on querying vector databases with the RAG. Come
Boom.
on, man. You
Wow.
got it.
They got the Azure Web Pub Sub for pub subbing, and also Event Hub's emulators are also now available for local development with Event Hub. So all sorts of good stuff. Boom.
Have we turned into an infomercial there? But that was kind of fun. It's always fun looking through component galleries. I'm like, what is that? I've never heard of that. Do I need that? Maybe I need that, James. I think I do need that.
.NET Aspire is like the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's the Fred Meyers. Like, because here's the thing with Fred Meyers. People in the world may not know what Fred Meyers is, but it's kind of it's a grocery store first.
Okay.
That also happens to have everything else. Unlike Walmart, which is everything else first, that also has to happen to have a grocery store.
Fair enough. Right. You can store first, store forward. Got it.
You go into a Fred Meyers and you're like, why is there a couch here? I'm going grocery shopping. Why is there a couch? Wait a second. Why is it
now
like...
that I think about it, I'm grocery shopping. Maybe I should sit in the couch, but
That's true. There's like a book section. There's like a home goods. There's a floral section. There's like outdoor. You could buy like kayaks. You could buy like bikes. You could buy. There's like a clothing section. There's like one in is it in? It's like not North Fremont. It's in Ballard, maybe the Ballard one.
The classic one. There's a very famous one that's very fashionable, very mid-century modern.
It really is. And it's like 2 floors, and like downstairs is like the home goods and like the clothing. Like what time warp weirdness and who is shopping here? I don't understand.
Hipsters.
But I'm there, so I guess I am shopping. And then you like walk down the aisle and you're like, oh, maybe I do need that pajama set, Fred Meyers. What? It's 75% off? It was originally $80, but now it's $22? Are you just giving away the store for free? What? How many fuel gas points do I get for this? I'm in Freddy's.
I was following the metaphor for a while. Okay, the upstairs was the components that are released with Aspire. The downstairs are all the user contributed components that you
just get everything's in it. It's all in the building. It's all in the building. It's all in the building, Frank. The building, you're in it, and there's things in it. It's all in the building.
I didn't know I needed Nats in my life, but I am adding Nats to my next server because I do need some streaming pub sub. I mean, honestly, like every app in the world needs a streaming pub sub, but I will have to go learn a little bit more about this Nats thing. Anyway, it is fun. The discoverability that's always fun.
Component discovery. One thing that I'll point out, and there's a bunch of cool new telemetry stuff, but one feature that I'm pretty sure this is the feature that Fowler wrote, and now I think they integrated it, which is cool. But you might be thinking to yourself, wow, this is really cool that .NET Aspire will like orchestrate and boot up everything. But what if, Frank? What if my API requires like my database to be started or whatever, because it's doing like EF scaffolding? Or what if I have this background server that's doing this stuff? How can I make sure that the database, the actual physical database, like the Postgres database or the SQL Server database, is started?
I thought that was the whole point of orchestration. no one's allowed to run until everyone's running. But I guess now that I've said that, that's obviously not how orchestration works. So
Correct. That makes no sense at all.
That is how to build a fragile system.
So they have this new thing which is called wait for resource async. It's kind of like, to me, if you're testing a website like UI test or Playwright, where like wait for this page to load before clicking on a button. So that's what it does. So
I dig it. I dig it. Little inelegant, if I may say, but necessary. Yeah. I still like mine. All or nothing, baby. Just it's all up or it's all down.
Well, but Frank, what if?
Oh, I know. So it's a chicken and egg. There's a initialization order problem with my terrible solution. So now, assuming it can dynamically resolve the resources in the appropriate order.
Your solution is correct if we were to develop and code it correct, which is like, hey, maybe don't try to initialize the database if I can't reach the database, and then keep trying in a background service worker to do that. But that's not how any of us write code. We just expect that database to be there running all the time, Frank. That's how I live my life.
Well, it's how we used to write scripts. That's how you write a script. And it just turns out scripts don't survive that well on servers. It's a hostile environment out there.
Yeah. A bunch of other cool open telemetry features that have been rolled in, taken part of this stuff. I don't actually know. I can't. I know what this is because I'm looking at the GIF that's in here that clearly James Newton King made because the little faces in the top left. But it's called exemplars. Can you explain metrics exemplars? Because it sounds like something from Halo.
James, no, I cannot.
Okay.
I stared at this also. What I hoped it was, what I dreamed it was like a template matching system. And I still think it's somewhat there, where you're trying to a more clever way to search a log. But I'm not sure that that's actually what it is, because I didn't fully grok it either. I am sorry. I have failed everyone and you. I apologize.
It says that exemplars are example data points for aggregated data. They provide access to the raw measurement value, timestamp when measurement was made, and trace context, if any. It also provides filtered tags, which are attribute tags that are dropped by view. Exemplars are an opt-in feature and allow customization via filters and reservoirs. An exemplar collection in OpenTelemetry.net is done automatically. So they're just on, I guess. So now they can visualize that. Yeah.
Here, well, can I just describe the general problem? And anyone who's ever run a server knows this problem. You collect logs. Great. You have all these status signals. Wonderful. What you actually want to do is take actions when events happen and do different things. And so what you do is you come up with weird scripts that parse log events, and you're like, okay, if the server reported this, and then the user reported this, and then the moon is in this phase, then do this. And I think that all of these like exemplars and all these kind of filter things are just helping you isolate the data that's actually important in your logs, so that you can not just find the event that you're looking for, but react to it in the future. Find it in a way that is reliable and that you'll detect it again in the future. Anyway, that's a lot of supposition, but I would say that's the overall general problem with telemetry that everyone's trying to solve. And this sounds like another attack at it.
Yeah. The other thing they added was span links. So spans are like the span of how long something took. So now it can be like basically sliced in to different, different spans or links. So like an example they put as an asynchronous system could link the operation that consumes data to the operation that it was created in. So links it together like, hey, this one thing actually did these 5 things. So don't show me 6 things. Show me one thing that is indented. So that's cool.
Especially in a distributed system, it can get hairy fast.
Now, the last little feature here is really fascinating because it actually has to do with something that already existed that I've done videos on multiple times. And there's an entire website called aspiredashboard.com that you can go to that tells you how you can actually use the Aspire dashboard in standalone mode to use and view your telemetry. So what does that mean, Frank? It means
that mean?
That's a great question. It means that there are when you go to opentelemetry.io and you look at the docs and you say, show me what it supports today. Well, it supports C++, .NET, Elixir, Go, Java, JavaScript, PHP, Python, Ruby, Rust, Swift, and more. Now, what you're saying is, wow, maybe I'm a developer writing Java code. I mean, if that's your jam,
It happens.
Happens to the best of us. Or maybe you're Frank Krueger writing Swift code. Wow.
It sadly does happen from time to time.
Now imagine this, Frank. You could actually add the Swift OpenTelemetry SDK into your Swift application.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me I don't have to use the Swift debugger? Is that what you're telling me right now?
Well, I mean, you probably still want to use it, but you could use...
Let me tell you how I use the Swift debugger. I write the word print.
Yeah,
wherever
you don't have to do that.
So I'm going to open telemetry those prints.
Yeah, so you opt into OpenTelemetry, and then in OpenTelemetry, there's OpenTelemetry exporters, and one of those is a gRPC exporter, and the .NET Aspire dashboard, which is distributed as a container, consumes via gRPC. So what that means, Frank, is that you, right now, could go to aspiredashboard.com.
I'm excited.
You'll see the Docker command to run. You can run it. It will start up the Aspire dashboard for you. And then you start your Swift app with the gRPC exporter for OpenTelemetry. And now your Swift application is pumping data into the .NET Aspire dashboard on your local machine. It's just sitting there. It's hanging out.
Can I ship it? Am I done?
I mean, you could put it up on it. You could put it on the internet. It's a container. You could deploy it. You could just put it out into the world. Now, the one part about this is that when you're running an app host, it boots up your project, boots down your project. So starts everything, starts it all down. So it's not actually running the container. It's running a special flavor of the Aspire dashboard because it has more things. It has different resources, right? The problem that people were running into, especially in standalone mode, is that you might start or stop your app 20 different times. And the problem is there's different GUIDs and different things that OpenTelemetry assigns to your app. So now the Aspire dashboard is smart enough to say, oh, these are of the same tag. I'll group them together for you.
Got it. Okay. That was a long way around through several metaphors, but I got it. Okay. Thank you very much. It's the restarting your app problem.
Yeah.
You know, it gets worse with every version of Mac. I gotta say, even when using Swift, like my apps still lose state. Anyway, good. Anything that makes the dev cycle, as we say, smaller and quicker, good. So
exactly. So that is the news, Frank Krueger.
Okay, so I came into it thinking I like the Python hosty stuff the most at Python project. But after talking to you, I really dig that I can just I can be very lazy with my Docker images and just spin up a million Docker images. And I like the components. The components are funny because they remind me of the early days of Docker when everyone's like, look at Docker Hub, you can have a database, you can have 12 different versions of Node running simultaneously. You're like, but I don't want that.
Yeah.
And so this seems like, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but this seems like Docker 2.0, a much more sane version.
Oh,
I like it.
I dig it as well. Well, let us know what you think of .NET Aspire if you've added it to your applications. I'll say also there's some experimentation happening in the world of Maui as well. You can just Google .NET Maui, .NET Aspire, and there's some interesting bits and pieces. So, for example, you'd want to pump OpenTelemetry data into an Aspire dashboard, run your backend services. Hello, Frank.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. You're not just running that by itself. You got stuff too. Anyways, and the cool part is I was talking to Matthew Leibowitz, and he has a cool demo on his GitHub. If you can find it, go for it. Different user where he uses service discovery of the APIs with dev tunnels. So it gets rid of all the local host shenanigans.
Yeah.
And it injects in the dev tunnel URLs for your local host tunneling for your mobile applications. That's really cool. I got it running and I was like, wow, that's really cool. Anyways, go check it out. Let us know if you're using Aspire. If you got questions, let us know. Go to mergeconflict.fm, contact button. There's an email. We definitely read them. I swear. There's mostly just junk that comes into our inbox. We totally read it if you have real quality comments. And also, we do love the YouTube comments, youtube.com/@mergeconflictfm. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe if you're in Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you subscribe, you also get updates when new podcasts come out. That's how the subscription works. You subscribe to the YouTube. We're getting close to 600. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And happy birthday, Frank, again. I think that's about it. Yeah.
I appreciate it. This was a fun one. A little bit out of my wheelhouse, but it's always fun to talk web. Talking the web.
Yeah. I like it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next time and next week, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.